Good evening and welcome to our session. Tonight's topic is quarantenes, how to help teenagers who are dealing with isolation and quarantining. So it's a challenging time for everyone, and there are some people that are quarantining more seriously, others less so, and it's important for us to be respectful of everybody's needs, whether your family is or is not quarantining. There are still some people who are considered high risk, and we have to make sure that we set an example for our students and our children regarding showing respect to other people's needs. There are two parts to quarantining and social distancing and following these rules that are important to distinguish. One part is self-care, and the other part is actually helping your teen to deal with the restrictions that exist. So like the airplane safety announcements where they say it's put on your oxygen mask first, it's important for us adults to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and not neglecting our own mental health, our own needs, in order that we may be able to better address the needs of our teens. So to be an effective and healthy parent, we have to tap into the areas where we are struggling and strengthen our capabilities. Many of us are stuck inside our homes, or we are limiting the places that we go. We're walking around with masks. We are limiting the places that our families congregate. But we're also stuck inside our own bodies, meaning that if we're feeling stressed and we feel it in our body, we cannot escape that. That's not something we can just pick up and go outside and suddenly we're not in our stressed out body anymore. So we have to pay attention, because our body can be an incredible tool to help us to stay sane in uncertain times where many more things than usual are out of our control. We may have kids home in the summer, which we did not expect to have. We may be limited in what we're able to get in terms of our groceries or other things that we need, appointments that we need to go to. There are people I've spoken to who need physical therapy, but the physical therapist hasn't opened up yet, so they can't get their physical therapy, so they're in pain. Dentist's office, all kinds of things, and depending on where you are for the summer, you may be finding more things restricted than you expected. So everyone needs different things, and technology isn't always the answer. We have to know how to navigate things in a way that we feel physically calm and grounded, so we can transmit those feelings to our families. So one thing that's very important to start off with is taking deep breaths, deep and calming breaths, because when we are in panic mode, right, or stressed out mode, what's happening is our body is doing the smart thing that our bodies do when we're in a state of distress or fear or panic, and that is it shuts down some of our systems just a little bit so that all of our energy can go to addressing the source of the panic, the source of the distress. But when it's ongoing distress and our bodies don't recognize it and they still are reacting to it as though it's imminent distress, imminent danger, we are not allowing ourselves to breathe properly. So it's very, very important to start with our breathing. How do we do this? Deep breathing is done through our nose, and it's meant to expand our abdomen. So when we breathe, maybe you remember when you were a little kid, that you would take a deep breath and you would hold in your guts. But that's not how a deep breath should look, because in a deep breath, you want to expand your lungs. When you're expanding your lungs, your abdomen should expand and allow in as much air as possible. So a deep breath is through your nose. And holding for a few seconds and slowly breathing out through our mouth. if we practice doing this a few times a day, almost like it's an exercise, get up in the morning, do your morning routine, and then spend 2 minutes doing some deep breathing. Take 5, 6, 10 deep breaths. And you can do this a few times a day, and it's a very good tool for just getting in touch with your body and making sure that you are allowing as much oxygen as possible to get into your body for your cells, for your brain function, and to help you to be a little bit calmer. Now, how can we go inside our body to find our inner calm? We are blessed with 5 senses, which are incredible tools to help us ground ourselves. When we feel like we're just out of control, we don't feel grounded. And what we want to do is tap into our 5 senses to help us feel grounded. Our 5 senses are sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. Each of us has a preferred sense that we go to when we need comfort or grounding. So for example, when some people are stressed, they eat. And they eat foods that we call comfort foods. Taste is their go-to sense. Some people put on music because hearing is their comfort sense. Some people draw or paint or cook, and touch is their go-to sense. Watching a soothing or humorous video, or an image, looking at an image that's calming, that would be using your seeing sense. And lighting a scented candle, boiling some cinnamon sticks in water, putting on perfume. Those are examples of smell comforts. So each of us has 1 or maybe 2 senses of comfort, and we should tap into that. We should try to really pay attention to what those are. So once we do that, we tap into the sense that makes us feel comforted. We can incorporate some rituals that nurture ourselves into our daily routine. So if it's our sense of smell, then we can make sure that we put on a perfume or a cologne that makes us feel calm throughout the day. Or have a scent going in our homes, whether it's an air freshener or something that we're cooking that makes us feel comforted. We can put on music, and the music can really be very, very helpful. Another important tool, besides for paying attention to your senses, is something called pause. Okay, and that's just slowing ourselves down. And sometimes we get into such a frenzy of trying to make things work and trying to keep our kids from fighting, trying to negotiate with a teenager, trying to run the household, trying to work, whatever it is that our stressors are, and we just can't slow down. So it's really important, especially when we get into those moments of distress, to try to pause or slow down, and even to say the word in our minds, pause, slow down. I know this is something that's very helpful to me when I am panicking in my kitchen because I have to cook for a lot of people and my kitchen is flying all over the place and I can't find something simple like the salt. And I remind myself, slow down, pause, then I look around, slowly look around the room at the counters, and then something that was so obviously there before that I couldn't see because of my panic is right there in front of me. And because I slowed down, I'm really able to see it and perceive it and understand that it's there, instead of the panic taking over my mind and I'm literally not seeing what's around me. So we can create a more peaceful environment by just slowing down. And we can say it to ourselves. We can also say it to our kids, to our spouse. It's time to slow down. We need to take a pause. So when we allow ourselves to do that, we are modeling a calmer environment, and we're also creating a calmer environment. It's very important for us to also feel our feelings. And there's a saying, when you name it, you can tame it. Right? So if you identify your feelings and you can say, I feel anxious about this and this that's going to happen. I feel sad. I feel depressed. I feel uncomfortable. If you can name the feeling, then you're already halfway or more than halfway towards dealing with it. Now, it's also helpful to say it or write it with some deep calming breaths. So you can say what the feeling is with some deep calming breaths. And once you've gone through that process of letting go of some of the intense or negative feelings, it would be important to then go to the positive feelings of gratitude for the things that you do have. So even though you're feeling stressed about things that you don't have, it's important to also recognize the things that we do have. And as soon as we can get ourselves to that calmer place, we can then also get to feelings of gratitude and positivity, and maybe even keep a list somewhere of the things we're pleased about, the things we're grateful for. You can keep a list on the refrigerator, and family members can add to it, so that we are able to model that gratitude for our family members. We can talk about hashgacha pratis, about how people are getting better, about how the virus seems to be waning in our community. And those are also things where we model more calm and gratitude. Right now, everyone's doing the best that they can, and Hashem should just bless us with continued strength and good health, and the ability to look within ourselves, to pay attention to our physically, how we are doing, how we're holding stress, to be able to do deep breathing, and to be able to find some inner calm so that we can exude outer calm. The second half of this, as I said, is helping our teenagers to deal with their emotions. So what some of our teenagers may be feeling is fear, panic, anxiety, frustration, loneliness, isolation from their peers, boredom, annoyance, confusion, just feelings of real uncertainty, because even though there's talk about schools opening in the fall, will they open in person? Will there be hybrids? What will that look like? What will my classroom look like? Will my friends be able to come to school, or are they going to be still quarantining? There's a lot of uncertainty. And these are just some of the emotions that your teenager may be feeling or displaying. Embracing new ways of staying calm ourselves is being a dugma chaya. That's setting a positive example for our kids. And for example, if we usually blow up when our children are fighting, and who is not aggravated by children repeatedly bickering, and our children hear us speaking in calm tones instead of blowing up, then they are likely to sit up and take notice. So at first, they may be in shock, or they may laugh at your new attitude, but don't let that deter you. If you stick with it, and you can say with a smile, yep, this is the new me, or I'm finding new ways to grow through these challenging times, you're setting a great example for children and teenagers about how to really become a more effective person. So every time we model healthier, calmer ways of reacting, we teach our children new possibilities in their own transformation. There is a two-pronged approach to building a slightly less environment with teenagers. So the first part is hearing and responding to complaints without losing your cool. Now, that's a hard thing to do because we're all kind of much more prone to losing our cool than maybe we were a few months ago. So, but we have to be careful to validate the feelings of our children, even when those feelings are expressed in ways that are hurtful to us. It's important for us to remember that the frustration our kids are feeling is not so much about us. It's about the circumstances, even if they blame us. Very often when a teenager expresses a negative emotion, it's expressed as an accusation. And here are some common ones. There's no food in this house. Why don't you ever have food? I'm sure that's one that parents hear a lot. I know that even in my home when my refrigerator is fully stocked, I've heard this complaint. A parent comes to ask a child to do a chore and the child says, "Stop bothering me. I don't care if my room is clean." Or another child touches your teenager's stuff and the teenager says to you, "How could you let her touch my stuff?" Or "There's nothing to do in this stupid house. I hate everyone here and I just want my friends. I'm sick and tired of all the people in this house." These are some common things that teenagers say when they feel cooped up, when they feel isolated, when they just feel like they can't have their normal life. So there are 3 steps to improving these unpleasant interactions. Step number 1 is remember, it's not about you. This is not personal. Just say that over and over and over again. It's not about me. Lather, rinse, repeat. It's not about me. It's really not about you. As a matter of fact, that's the good news. Your daughter or your son feels safe enough with you to show you their ugliest side. And that's actually a huge compliment to you that they feel comfortable enough to just let it all hang out with you. Next, acknowledge and validate. And that's hard to do, especially when we feel accused. But again, just keep saying to yourself, it's not about me, it's not about me, it's about her frustration, it's about his anger, it's about, their loneliness, etc. So we need to say things that validate and acknowledge our teenagers' frustration. And we say things like, it sounds like you're really frustrated. You probably wish you never had to clean up. Or, wow, you're really angry that your sister colored on your book report or on your diary. You must have, really worked hard to make that as you wanted it, and now it's ruined. You can say things like, sounds like you really miss your friends a lot. You don't have to say, I understand, because very often a teenager will throw back at you. How do you possibly understand? You can't understand. You never had to do this. So staying away from words like, I understand, I get it, I've been there too, I know how you feel, those are not really validating. Those are attempts at empathy that don't always work, especially with teenagers. So we want to acknowledge that there is something real here, and we want to validate, wow, it seems like you really, really distressed over this. And then the last part of that is to make non-invasive suggestions or invitations. Like, rather than saying something like, well, you shouldn't have left your diary out where she could get it, you might want to say, what do you think we could do to correct this situation? Or I wonder if you'd like to send me a text of the foods you want me to buy or order. I heard Bubby saying that you'd be so happy to hear from the grandchildren. So then maybe, your child will feel less isolated because now she's contacting grandparents or elderly relatives who really need it. Saying something like, I've been thinking of learning how to make granola, and I'd love some help figuring it out. And then, that addresses maybe your child's boredom. But the use of I messages is the key in all of these suggestions. You're not saying you should do this. You're not ordering your child to do it, but rather saying, I've been thinking of, or I heard, or I wonder. Which leaves the teenager a lot of room to accept or not without being more chutzpahdik. Teenagers are a bit allergic to being told what to do, and therefore making direct suggestions usually backfires, but you probably already knew that. The second part of this all is to provide opportunities for your teen to do something new. And these crazy times are also a rebirth of sorts. Summer provides opportunities that we didn't have before, and a lot of people are going out now. But there are things to do right in the home, like learning to cook, organizing an area of the home, paint a wall, learn to sew, learn to knit, bake, touch type, learn an instrument or a new language. And there are so many resources online that it's possible to find something new, even for the toughest customer. I've heard of a lot of teenagers making small camps in their backyard, where they have 5 or 6 children of young ages, and they're just doing activities with them for part of the day and giving their parents a respite and making a little bit of money. So that's also really nice. Rabbi Aaron Herman spoke to a group of teenagers earlier on in the whole corona situation. And one of the things that he said was, we have now a commodity that we're always short on, and that's time. Time is the biggest commodity that we have now, and loads of time on our hands. So let's use it to find ways to be our best selves. And then he went on to say that many years from now, we will be asked by the next generations, how did you use your time during Corona? How did you use your time during quarantine? And we have to think about, what will we answer? We, speaking to our teens about this and saying, let's be able to show how much we grew and what we accomplished. That's really, some teenagers can really relate to that, and it resonates with them. Personally, I found my son's clarinet. He hasn't lived at home for 5 years, and he clearly doesn't miss it. So now it's mine, and I am trying to learn to play it. And my father, who was a professional jazz clarinet player in his youth, would hopefully be proud. Taking on something new energizes us, because one of the things that we're missing from our daily lives is the newness. You go to work, you meet new people, you take on new challenges, go to the store and meet people, find new products, go places, forge new friendships. That's a little bit missing from our lives right now. So doing new things keeps us motivated and moving forward. It's important, by the way, to keep in mind the difference between your introverted kids and your extroverted kids. That's a whole other workshop. But introverted kids are going to enjoy some of the being alone time, while as extroverts are really struggling because they need the energy that they get from people. So these are some of the ways that we can interact with our teenagers and in front of our teenagers to get them to really be more positive and to learn behaviors that will help them through their negative feelings during this time. Thank you for joining me this evening, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Take care.